What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me here at my YouTube channel. This is where I talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff I love to talk about. Movies, video games, comic books, TV shows. I love to talk about nerdy, geeky stuff. So let's dive into it and let's talk about episode 4 of Harley Quinn Season 2. And kind of how I predicted early on, we're seeing Harley go through and kind of challenge the villain that is in charge of the different sectors of Gotham City. After the earthquake at the end of season 1, they all kind of broke up Gotham City, and they are all running different parts of Gotham. So, I mean, similar to No Man's Land. It's not really No Man's Land, but there's definitely shades of that in there. So what this episode focused on was Harley trying to wrangle control out of a certain district from Mr. Freeze. And Mr. Freeze has never really been one of my favorite Batman villains. I know his backstory very well. Obviously, he was the primary villain in Batman and Robin. 1997, horrible movie. Batman and Robin is still the only movie I've ever walked out on in my life in the theater. I got up and left. I looked at my buddy and I said, I've had enough. I'm out. And I got up and I left. It was during the auction scene when Batman pulls out the Bat credit card and he says, never leave home without it. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm done. So Mr. Freeze has never really been my favorite. But I really liked the way they approached Mr. Freeze in this episode. By the way, Mr. Freeze in Arkham games, Arkham City, he was pretty good in Arkham City. But I like the approach here, because the approach here is still that sympathetic villain, but at the same time, he's still villainous. I mean, he's an evil person, he's doing evil things, but you sympathize with him because of what his endgame is, because of what his goal is, and that's to save his wife. At one point, Harley even questioned whether or not the wife was really sick. Well, we learned that the wife was sick. And one thing that we're seeing in this series is we're seeing the end of some villain stories. We saw the end of the Penguin story, very tragically. if you're a Penguin fan, that was tragic. But we also saw the end of Mr. Freeze's story here. Harley and her gang brought conclusion to Mr. Freeze's story. And it was a satisfying one. It was one that as a Batman fan, somebody who's not necessarily a huge Mr. Freeze fan, but as a Batman fan, and somebody who's read lots of Mr. Freeze storylines, it was a satisfying ending to this story. Probably the most satisfying Mr. Freeze ending I've ever seen. So the one thing that this series is doing really well is they are honoring the Batman characters for the most part. There's still a couple characters, I mean, Commissioner Gordon, they just don't have any grasp at all on Commissioner Gordon. And I realize it's for fun. I realize that they're just poking fun at the character, but I love that character. So I'd rather see a more faithful take on Commissioner Gordon. Another really fun component of this episode is one of my favorite components of the Harley Quinn series, and that's the Kite Man Poison Ivy relationship. It continues to be funny, it continues to be endearing, and it continues to be kind of sweet. And I love Kite Man's constant vendetta to please Poison Ivy. And in this case, in this episode, he took a step to try to please himself a little bit, get something that he wanted out of this upcoming wedding. and I just really enjoyed it. So yeah, guys, this was a really great Mr. Freeze centric episode. I mean, yeah, it was about Harley, it was about her gang, it was about Poison Ivy and Kite Man, but it was a Mr. Freeze centric episode. So if you're a Mr. Freeze fan, you're going to really like this episode because it was a very well done Mr. Freeze storyline. Kind of a standalone episode, but still fitting into the overall arch of this Harley Quinn series so far. For me, it's the best episode of the season so far, but there hasn't been a bad one yet. So, what did you guys think of Harley Quinn episode 4, season 2? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your take on it. And thank you so much for joining me here at the OK Review, where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff we love to talk about. And until next time, we'll see you later.